With the announcement that Final Fantasy XVI is finally coming to PC, I have the chance to play it for the first time. While I originally considered buying a PS5 for this and a few other exclusives, I wound up deciding against it because, yeah. So, does it live up to my expectations? Admittedly, it's probably good to talk about specs first. I am not especially well versed in technical stuff. I just know some stuff is better than other stuff and whatnot. Here's the specs that I have versus the actual recommended. I played mostly set on medium graphics, turned shadows to low, and some other things. For the most part, the game ran steadily. It wasn't flawless by any means, but I'm not meeting the recommended specs, so it wasn't really that surprising. I imagine I may run into a lot more issues when we get to more intense sequences of the game. My PC did not like how much fire there was, understandably so. Plain and simple, the port itself is fine, probably. The requirements aren't really that outrageous, as far as I can tell, and requiring an SSD for a game from a console generation that is mainly about load times is not even that surprising. Putting aside the technical stuff, I want to talk about the actual game, though.
The flames of disaster!
Games nowadays are really built on presentation. In the modern era of video games, it's important to make a game look eye-catching as possible to not get lost in the sea of games you're competing with. Square was once the leading brand, or one of the leading brands, in creating beautifully crafted visuals. Their games still stand the test of time to today. Final Fantasy XIII and XIV still hold up, despite being over a decade old. 16 is no laughingstock, though. I'd argue it's harder to distinguish it from a lot of newer titles just by looking at it. The competition do be competing. That said, 16's cutscenes look like they're straight out of a movie. It's genuinely a masterpiece in that regard, though it can be a bit awkward when it transitions into the gameplay, as the animations are obviously a little bit more stiff, as gameplay tends to be that way. But as far as I've seen, the game looks really good, and the icon fights are a spectacle to behold. The combat itself is flashy, but they don't give you a ton of time to get settled into that feeling as of yet. 16 upholds Final Fantasy's reputation of being top-notch in the visual department, though I'd say its method is a bit different than how they used to. The whole demo was pretty jaw-dropping to me. I just hope the rest of the game can live up to that as we continue down the line. I'm pretty impressed overall on the visual front in both cutscenes and gameplay. And the icing on the cake is obviously the music, which has only elevated what I've seen so far. As for the game itself,
Hey, look out!
from my understanding so far, this game takes a step away from the open-world structure of FF15 and is going more linear, which I think works in its favor because 15 was a bit too ambitious in my eyes. Regardless, the linear exploration means I don't need to run around a whole area for 30 minutes to find every little hidden thing. It also lets me get into what drew me to 16 in the first place, which is the combat. This is kind of a character action game, but I think its identity is balanced between being a standard character action game and a JRPG. While there are a lot of options to use here, I never felt like the demo gave me options to juggle enemies in the air. There is a little bit of that, but it feels like most of the systems are not interested in doing it. There's a lot I didn't fully grasp with the demo, so more options could open up potential combo routes, so I'll have to see for myself later. The combat does feel good though. Knocking enemies away with fire and then swapping to wind to pull them back in, being able to block instead of dodge using Titan, and using Phoenix to dash in. All of it feels pretty seamless and pretty easy to understand. It's just intuitive to me. I'm curious as to how fights against larger monsters will tend to be, as it really comes down to the design of the monster and how they fight that makes it work within the game systems. But overall, I enjoyed my time in the basics of combat and as well as in the icon challenge. The only thing I'm not too sure of is Torgal and commanding him, since I didn't realize that this wasn't just an automatic thing until I checked my equipment to see that there was an item equipped on me that made it automatic. I probably should have known, because the game tutorial I'm pretty sure says that it isn't supposed to be automatic, but here we are. I didn't wind up changing this since I discovered it right at the end of the demo, but I don't think it'll hamper my overall enjoyment. Since this is a demo and it's only showing me really the beginning of things, I'm not going to pay much attention to the narrative in terms of criticism here. I don't know enough to be critical. The start is quite interesting to me, and I think the game is focusing on being more of a political drama, which can be very thought-provoking. However, I'm curious if the story will stay its course or not, and I don't want that to be answered, by the way. I've heard things here or there, it's just a side effect of the game being out for a very long time, or a year or two, and that's a long time for games nowadays. This stuff has already been discussed at length, so I'm not sure how things will shape up, but I've heard things here and there. Otherwise, 16 is shaping up to be a great RPG for me, maybe not so much for my PC, but we'll have to see about that when the time comes. And if you've played the FF16 demo, or if you've played the full game, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, if you're going to post spoilers, be mindful of other people. Some people have not played the game yet, some people are going to play the game eventually, so just tag them in any way that you can. Thank you. You can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want. I may or may not come back to this game as a review, we'll have to see. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.